Hello there, guys. It's me, Kristi. How are you doing tonight? I am doing a very much a surprise hangout. This originally was going to be something with Michael Rowlands, then he was delayed, and so I moved it, and then so I decided in the end to just take the hangout and use the opportunity to go over some news that came out last night when I was guest appearing on Let Them Eat Keck. So if you guys don't know, Kevin Logan and Mike Stitchberry have a show on Kevin's channel called Let Them Eat Keck, where they review the month that has just passed, whatever month that is, news and like right-wing, far-right, and sort of, fascist and crypto-fascist news. And this month, the timing of it was Mike was ill, so Kevin asked me to fill in. I did. And one of the stories that he covered on the show was about Nigel Farage leaving UKIP over the appointment of Tommy Robinson as a special advisor to the new party leader. And this, to me, as somebody who does political science, and of course, my study in Britain is the qualitative election study of Britain, I've sat in focus groups since 2010, listening to people react to Nigel Farage and how he was the face of UKIP for much of the 2010s of British politics. So I thought I'd do a quick video for you guys. Oh, I see 14 people. Hello. I was going to ignore the chat because there was nobody watching before, but now I'll maybe check it out before the end of the show. Anyway, I wanted to just take a little time to focus in on this massive news because for me, it's very weird sorry, I have to keep tilting my head up because otherwise my glasses, as you see, just reflect from my laptop. So I have to really look down my nose at you, which I'm not doing because of arrogance. I'm doing it for the lighting. Really. Yeah, as somebody who studied British politics, watching this happen was pretty fascinating. So I sort of did a summary of the story already, but as a bit more context, the UKIP United Kingdom Independence Party was founded as a very, very right-wing party. It basically was more right-wing than the Conservative Party, which is the other big conservative party in Britain, and then the fringe extreme groups like the BNP and the EDL. And they wanted to sort of sit and kind of capture some of those conservative voters, but still kind of like not alienate. They're occupying a narrow political space, but one that they felt that they could kind of provide coverage for. One of their rules to distinguish them from the racist groups that they, that they were that they could be associated with was UKIP instituted a rule that said if you were a former member of the BNP or the EDL, you were not allowed to join UKIP. Now, if you remember from a couple of years ago, Sargon was actually shouted out and given respect at an EDL rally. That video exists on the internet. And they were saying, oh, he should join the EDL. But anyway, Tommy Robinson, I think, founded the EDL, although he's apparently later left. And so he's not allowed to join UKIP. And I know from talking to V that in sort of because, yeah, he's a bit of a gossip. And so I hear things. One of the things that did come up was that, that there was this Paul Joseph Watson, Milo, and Sargon, and I said not so much Milo, but Dankula wanted Tommy Robinson to be in UKIP. And part of the problem in achieving that for them was this rule. So as you'll see, this issue has now kind of come to a head. And although Batten is a leader of UKIP and ultimately he makes these decisions, it does seem that he's choosing to spend his time with people who like and associate with Tommy Robinson. And this, because of Tommy's prior, his criminal conviction, I guess. And recently he been arrested for not perverting the course of justice. I don't think that's a phrase, but when he was trying to film in a court or outside of a court and interfere with the judicial proceedings in ways that are not permitted under British law. He got arrested for that and was on probation. Then he did it again and got thrown in jail. And then there was a whole drama about that. But speaking of that, actually, let's see what kind of people turned out to support Tommy, which is not his real name, as we all know, but it's easier to say than his other name. So this was back in June. just in June of this year, I put together clips that I'd found on Twitter. Have I? Yes, and I'm sharing. Okay, I did that so smoothly and fluidly, I didn't even notice. But let's just remind ourselves of the kind of people who get together, what they do when there are a bunch of Tommy Robinson supporters around London.
Interesting research, actually. Jesus Christ. I'm a journalism student. I've never seen it like this before.
So yeah, I mean, there's more video. This is a clash, and then there's also the chasing people down the road. If you guys remember that clip, that came out that day. Yeah, I think this is. Oh yeah, because I put these two together, and I actually found a third video, weirdly enough. So this video starts off in the front of the street, and then they go down the street, and I found another video of people watching from the house across the street where the crowd was running toward, but I didn't see it in time. So there we go, Tommy Robinson supporters. They're shouting, "We want Tommy out, we want Tommy out." Those are the police at the front, running. So the third video I was telling you about is taken from a window of an apartment of this building over here, and it's coming from the other direction. But yeah, okay, so that's a little taste. You know, this was June of this year, when Tommy Robinson supporters went on the streets of London. Yeah, June 9th of 2018 is when the video went up. And so yeah, that's the kind of people we're talking about. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to share again here really soon. We're going to look at a video from Nigel Farage where he, in the opening of his radio show, he basically explains his reasoning and rationale for, sorry, I'm not looking down. I have to either look really far down or I have to look really far up. I have to practice this and see which one is better. We'll take a look at him in his own words explaining why he felt the need to leave a party that he's been a member of for a quarter of a century. So we'll watch that over here.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. I joined UKIP, well, my card here says in 1992, because that was when it was the Anti-Federalist League. So for over a quarter of a century, I've been involved in UKIP and its forerunner.
So is that blowing you guys out of the room? I can check the chat, but hopefully that's not too loud. I'm trying to judge it by not going above this 3 line here on the bottom. That's my soundboard, y'all. If you're looking at it right now, the bottom of my screen, that's how I judge whether or not people are too loud relative to each other. Google's very sophisticated interface.
I have worked tirelessly for UKIP. I've spoken at 1,500 public meetings up and down the country. During those years, I've travelled hundreds of thousands of miles, and the aim was very simple. It was to take votes away from the establishment parties to force a vote in this country that would get us back our independence. And you could argue that in 2016, we had been pretty successful. One of the keys to that was talking about things that everybody else wanted to brush under the carpet, issues like immigration, which we were told, if you discuss that, it's somehow disreputable. I made sure that UKIP talked about tough issues, but we absolutely excluded anybody who'd ever been a member of the British National Party, the English Defence League. We wanted to make sure that when the abuse was thrown at us, it couldn't possibly be proved to be true. Now, I'm afraid that over the course of the last few months, under this leader, Mr. Gerard Batten, a lot has changed, and he seems to be pretty obsessed with the issue of Islam, not just Islamic extremism, but Islam. And UKIP wasn't founded to be a party based on fighting a religious crusade.
Yeah, they're more generally against immigration, like not just Muslims. they're more broad based in their oppositions to immigration than just being focused on Islam. So I think if you have been listening, you can hear in my setup what he's describing in terms of the party is, competing with the conservatives, and also, to be honest, I said the conservative space, but UKIP appealed to a lot of labor voters too, a lot of sort of working class labor voters who were feeling economically displaced and weren't politically liberal, politically progressive. I guess it depends on how you conceive of the word liberal. So we'll say progressive to be clear. They're the more sort of like traditional, old school, maybe closer to like blue collar Democrats, people who their motivations aren't like social justice aims. They're more like union people and their economic justice, and their focus is just a little bit different. And in the case of labor, there were quite a lot of people in the labor movement because of their labor association, being a worker, being a member of a union, but their political views weren't on the left, if it makes sense. And so, I shouldn't just mention this space next to the conservatives. I mean, they did pick up quite a lot of labor voters as well.
And also obsessed with this figure called Tommy Robinson, whose real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, who is seen by some to be a great hero standing up and fighting for working class people, but who has a pretty suspect record and who brings with him a group of people, I'm afraid, amongst which we see scuffles, violence. Many have criminal records, some pretty serious.
And I just showed you some video of those people. So, yeah. Case in point.
And all of it's been dragging UKIP away from being an electoral party into a party of street activism. I have warned, and I wrote 10 days ago, that this direction was catastrophic, particularly at a time when the great Brexit betrayal is upon us. Both the Labour and Conservative parties have broken promises that were made not just in the referendum, but in the general election as well. Things couldn't be better for UKIP, but unfortunately, we've gone in this direction of street activism and turning a blind eye to extremist politics. Many of the best people that I've worked with over those many long years have already left the party in the space of the last few weeks. There was one last hope that the party's national executive at the weekend would do something about this, would, pass a motion of no confidence in Gerard Batten ahead of what's due this Sunday. And this Sunday, there's going to be a march in London with Gerard Batten and Tommy Robinson as the speakers, that 2 days before the most important parliamentary vote of modern times. And the image that will give of what Brexit stands for is something that our enemies will use against us for perhaps many years to come. Damaging UKIP is one thing. Damaging the Brexit cause is even worse.
All right, so just very quickly, I'm going to interrupt here before he wraps up and talks about his why he's leaving. It's only about a 2 or 3 minute clip, so we're almost done here. But I think it is really important that it seems he was always focused on electability and having a party that is electable, not merely about agitation. He wanted to have a bigger focus. And to his credit, Britain voted on Brexit. They had the vote. Like, I am not giving him credit for how the vote turned out, but certainly when you think back on the things that happened or the people who were connected with the eventual referendum, I mean, he is very much the face of it long before it became, the actual debate when Cameron put it up for a vote and other people kind of got involved with it. And so I think it speaks to how Farage thinks about things as a politician. And I'm going to show you some of the research from my study in 2015, where we looked at how voters were reacting to political party leaders. And I want to show you why I think Nigel Farage leaving UKIP is like UKIP leaving UKIP, is how I described it to Kevin last night. It's simply the face of UKIP. It's hard, kind of hard. It's like if Bill Gates decided to rebuke Microsoft and leave, or Steve Jobs quit Apple. I mean, some things are like so tied together in terms of the public perception that I don't see anybody with the kind of caliber of political connections with an audience that Farage has. And I just think now it's pretty much a guarantee. I mean, UKIP was withering before, but now it really will, I think, further wither from public notice, because the people that they have to be spokesmen and spokeswomen aren't don't connect with the average voter the way that Nigel Farage does. But let's get back to his ending quip here, and then we'll look at some of my research.
And I, with a very heavy heart, given how much I cared for this party, the people within it, have reached, I think, a very sad decision, certainly very sad for me, that I simply can't go on with it. I don't recognise the party as being the one that I helped to found and fought for all of those years. I believe the brand has been now so damaged, so tarnished, that it's not able to pick up and won't be able to pick up the political opportunity that's there, staring it in the face. And so with very great reluctance, I have, as of now, resigned my membership of UKIP, cancelled my standing order at the bank. I'm no longer a member of UKIP, which, hey, it's made up the biggest part of my adult life. It's a very sad thing to do, but there it is. It's done.
All right, and it's done. Nigel Farage is not a politician or a person that I would get along with or agree with, but I could at least imagine what it would have to take for me to renounce, sort of just really step away from the Democratic Party and not call myself a Democrat. It would take a lot. So I would imagine it's probably not that different for him. And this was probably a really difficult decision, and speaks to how profoundly he disagrees with the direction of the party at the moment. But before we move on to where the party's going without Nigel, let's take a look back at this article that I helped co-author back in May of 2015, when we had done our focus groups in Dundee. The first early part of the election was a leaders debate, and we always have focus groups on the nights of leaders debates. And so what we did here was, first we looked at the party leaders and ratings in a quantitative poll to evaluate how they performed in terms of a public perception when you ask on a approval ratings scale. And then we looked at our data, and we triangulated the patterns we found with the patterns that we observe in the quantitative data. So Nicola Sturgeon in 2015 received the highest positive rating of any of the British political party leaders, according to polling by TNS. They had a sample of nearly 1,200 British adults, and her net approval rating was plus 33. And this was consistent for Scotland, Wales, and England. Again, this was 2015. And she got the highest approval ratings of all the party leaders across the country. Like, she comes in first, she does well everywhere. Right, the next people didn't do as well. Nigel Farage actually came in second in terms of having an overall positive rating of plus 12. Then Cameron had plus 7, and the other two party leaders, Miliband, who was underwater by -8, and Nick Clegg, who is under -22, which is why the Lib Dems were associated with the policies that they had backed in the coalition government. Right, so we say, if you're like us, you might scratch your head at this result. How can party leaders from two different sides of the political spectrum, be doing so well? And so we then report our findings from our data. So we did an exercise. I'm trying to remember if this is, I actually haven't read this before I read this on air. So our methodology, either we used the data from the nights of the focus groups, or we combined all of the data. So I'll see. Sturgeon, in our analysis, here we go. Yes, using focus groups, from across Britain. We analyzed people's impressions of all 7 party leaders. So these are all the data combined. And our preliminary findings were that Sturgeon and Farage really hit the sweet spot in terms of how they described them, because they were both articulate enough to get their values and policy proposals across, while also coming across as really authentic enough to be believed. And that's what this little chart here shows: more authenticity to inauthenticity, and inarticulation over to articulation. So what you found is that at the time, Leanne, who runs the Welsh Party. Why am I not remembering her name now? Oh, this is so embarrassing. Anyway, she and the Green Party leader both came across to general public voters as being very authentic, but not as well able to articulate their policies. Whereas the men who were running the main parties came across as articulate, but really, really inauthentic and full of crap. And then, of course, you had this, what we call the sweet spot of being both authentic and articulate. And there's a reason why nobody occupies the position of being both inauthentic and inarticulate in a party leadership position, and that's because it would disqualify you from being a party leader. You really couldn't lead if you were both inarticulate and inauthentic. So Nicholas Sturgeon came out on top because people were using words like strong, passionate. Someone else said, I wish she was the party leader of a different party. People just sort of, even if they disagreed with her, they felt that she was very honest in the way she presented herself. And here's the one that's important for our evening tonight. Nigel Farage also came across as authentic, although in very different ways from Ms. Sturgeon. Mr. Farage was perceived as understanding the lives of ordinary Britons, especially when contrasted against the out-of-touch main party leaders. Many people referenced the image of him holding a pint and a cigarette. Another common observation was that he spoke in the way of ordinary people, not politicians speak. Unlike Ms. Sturgeon's sincerity, some QESB participants questioned how much of the rhetoric Farage used was sincere or designed to rile up his base. And UKIP preferring or leaning voters felt Farage gave voice to things that people like them were thinking, while non-UKIP leaning voters questioned whether he believed everything he said. So based on that, we kind of interpret the difference between the net positive ratings between Sturgeon and Farage. The difference is so wide because Sturgeon doesn't have the things weighing him down that Farage has. And so, yeah, when it's like Nigel Farage, again, you don't have to like him, but he was the best thing going for UKIP in UKIP. Even when he wasn't the party leader, still just having him as a spokesman was still not a bad idea, especially because I'll just stop sharing for a second. He had such high name recognition at this point, or does have such high name recognition. And people have decided about him, but, there's still, he still will get, attention when he would be speaking. And I'm not going to show too much more of the video presentations here, but I do want to just very quickly show Carl, who had what's his dude, Batten. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm trying to multitask, so words sometimes fail me when I'm trying to multitask. He had Gerard Batten on his channel recently talking about the UKIP Civil War, and this is like a 37-minute softball conversation back and forth between two buddies about how right they are. So you can go watch the whole thing if you want. But even when Carl is talking about right-wing party politics and how people on the right wing operate, he's still going to manage to try to drag in and blame the progressives. So there's like about 2 minutes of this that I want to just clip out for you, and we can watch these guys, you guys, as I said, tell each other how right they are. And I think we have to call him Shiny of Akkad for this, because really, Carl, you need to dust down with some foundation or some powder on your forehead and your nose there, because you got an awful shine going on, buddy. All right, let's have a watch.
And being a smaller party, we are far more open to entryism. So I don't want to get rid of it. I want to keep it. But you're quite right. I mean, there are
I should contextualize this by saying what they're discussing here is the fact that UKIP does not allow former BNP or EDL members in, and Batten actually supports that policy, but that's the context of what we're jumping into here. And Tommy Robinson, obviously, because what happened was Batten made him his special advisor. So he's not in the party, but he's like a consultant to the party leader. And this is what's causing the problem. So that's kind of the context for this.
Local councillors for the Conservative Party and the Labour Party who are former BNP members or National Front. And Nigel, of course, employed somebody who had been a former member of the National Front.
Wow, I didn't know
as a
that.
personal kind of assistant. Yeah. So I think there's a degree of hypocrisy here as well.
Yeah, I think it's
This is what the shine. That's what I'm talking about. Just a little bit of powder. Just stop off at like a Boots or a Superdrug and find a shade in your color, Carl, and just powder off before you get under those lights. Just a little tip. you know, you've been doing YouTube for how many years now? Just a little tip from me to you.
It's also pandering to the kind of progressive consensus as well in the mainstream media.
There it goes. Even inside UKIP, there's pandering to the progressive consensus. Yeah, can't get away from us progressives. We're everywhere.
Is it like pandering to this kind of stick that they regularly try to beat almost everyone with? But anyway, so one of the things that I noticed about Farage's criticisms was that the people who are supporting Tommy, I mean, to sum it up, it felt like he was being rather classist, as in saying these people are lowbrow, thuggish, and I mean, do you feel that's an accurate characterization of Tommy's supporters?
Do you remember the video I showed at the beginning? Just think on that while he answers this.
And absolutely not. If you've been out to these, you know, I've been on one. You have, of course, because I've seen you there. Been out to some of these races. They're ordinary people. Not all working class. You get, you know, you get higher kind of class, or if that's not the wrong word, different class. You cuts across social classes, and I've been surprised how much it cuts across social classes. Support for what he's saying. And support for him. But in those rallies, you get lots of ordinary, decent working class people.
Remember the guy doing the Nazi salute? Just think about that guy while they're talking about this.
Husbands and wives, families. And these are the people who were the backbone of the vote in 2017. We know that to a certain extent. We've got the other side, the Remains, always telling us how ill-educated and ignorant the elite people were.
To be fair, Carl is super ignorant. I mean, we just demonstrated that again. And just on Twitter, on Twitter, I don't know, someone was replying. I saw the comment go by. I wasn't involved in the conversation. I was like tagged into it. And Carl had posted on his not_Sargon account that leftist basically means Marxist. I was like, dude, no. And I went and I took a picture. I wrote define leftist, and I got a picture of the definition, which says somebody on the left wing of a party, and said this is not Marxism. So, you know, sometimes the stereotypes really exist for a reason. You know, I'm just saying.
We know that because it's been said, hasn't it?
Over and over and over. That won't stop saying.
Yeah, I mean, that isn't true in itself because there were lots of highly educated people who voted leave.
Carl wasn't one of them, though.
But yes, I do think there is an element of class prejudice here, is that somehow these people, their view mattered when they were voting to leave, but doesn't matter when they have some other views that maybe Tommy Robinson isn't wrong about everything.
So they're basically, you know, they're trying to turn Farage's criticism of the hooligans into him being classist. And I watched that thing from Nigel Farage just now, and Kevin played the earlier clip. And I have to say, I don't see the kind of classism that they're presenting here myself, if you guys want to point it out to me by looking at the text more closely. But I think this is just their way of not talking about the hooligans that follow around Tommy Robinson and that, you know, could very well show up and do on Sunday what they did in June in London. And then now they wouldn't just be Tommy Robinson hooligans and thugs. They'll be UKIP thugs. So, you know, that's going to be interesting to watch. I'll be checking the news on the weekend. How about you guys? A little bit more and then we'll wrap it up.
And you know, the kind of policies that I'm promoting now, which everybody can read in our manifesto, by the way. There's nothing mysterious about it. I wrote it and published it in September at our conference, and generally everyone that's read it is approving of the policies that are in there. So they are policies about being a populist party in the real sense of the word, in my view, which is the party whose policies are popular. Okay,
populism and popular are not populist policies are not populist because they're popular. Yeah, so again, words mean things. It'd be good if you know what they are before you use them. Just as a general rule.
With most of the general population and running the country for the benefit of your citizens, not some internationalist ideology or globalism.
It's crazy that we even have to debate this. This shouldn't even be a conversation we have, but
there you go. That's something Carl finds the idea of crazy of debating, which I don't even know really what he said was. I honestly don't even know what he was talking about there. maybe I have to listen through it. And I've been looking at the chat too to see if you guys have any questions. So that was it really. I just wanted an excuse to show off my own research. Well, no, and also to marvel like that at it. Like I said, it's so strange for me because in my head, you know, there's like my YouTube life, and then there's my work. And when I see the bits of those things coming together, well, it's a bit weird. But I just say, you know, I know that there's that joke that I've heard people banting about that, you know, Kevin kind of brought it up too, that he's got a Midas, he's got a reverse Midas touch. I think there needs to be like a year in the fall of Carl, just like how much he's managed to mess up and ruin from, you know, the MythCon debate going backwards. I might have to have a wrap-up show or something just to kind of get our hands around this. But anyway, on Sunday or Saturday, I think, I can't remember which day it was, whatever day Farage mentioned in his clip, there's a rally about the Brexit thing going on. I imagine it's going to be pro and con kind of thing, but I don't have the particular details, but there's going to be like a big thing happening. Yes. And apparently Tommy Robinson will be there, and perhaps Sargon will as well. And we'll see if they end up chasing the police down the street or not. Who knows? Stay tuned. It'll be interesting. Okay, I'm going to check on my phone here in the chat to see if you guys have any questions. And if you don't, then I'm going to get on with my night. So I said, any questions? What's happening on Sunday? I answered that one. I'm classist. Oh, sorry. Let's see. I see. If you guys have questions, use, sorry, the question mark. How do you do that? That way? Is it, or this way for you? I can't tell. But I can't tell a question just if it's a statement. So no, you guys don't really seem to have any questions. The next thing coming up on my channel is I'm supposed to be talking, tonight, later on tonight, you guys won't know about this until it comes out, but tonight I'm having an appearance on Serious Inquiries Only with Thomas Smith. And I'll just leave because I don't know if he's announced the topic, so I don't want to spoil anything. So I don't want to say anything, but I'm going to record that in about 2.5 hours. And then tomorrow night, I'm supposed to be talking to Rich Penny, but we haven't actually set a time yet, so I have to check my Twitter. So you'll have to stay tuned on that. And I did this morning record a reaction to KSI's diss track, Aries, to Quedeca and Crypt and Dax. But I'm having a hard time editing. I'm having a hard time like putting the video in the window and myself, so I haven't figured that out yet. But just if you watch that on Sunday, the last time I had one of these hangouts, you can go check out the new KSI track. That's it. So guys, until next time, I have been Kristi. You've been awesome. I think the lighting. Oh, can I show you my new kit before I go? Okay, I said blah, 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 bye. Okay, I'll just say bye really fast last time, or because I want to show you this. This is my new thing. Okay, my lights are going to change now, but this is my new. I'm so proud. So this is my new baby. My mobile phone gets put in there to do the record, and then it's got the dead cat, the Muppet fuzzy thing, and this turns into this side. A light, and then I can also put it on my tripod so I can set it up as a stand. So that was really exciting. That's been like early Christmas for me, and I was so excited about it I had to share it with you. Thank you for listening. All right, guys, I've been Kristi. You have all been awesome, and we'll see each other again very soon. Bye-bye.